Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Did you know that there are common thinking patterns that are holding women back in leadership? And women are more prone to self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, especially in high-level jobs. Today, we'll discuss what strategies we can use to help us recognize our thought patterns and beliefs that impact our behaviors. We'll also find out what role confidence plays in overcoming our challenges. I'm joined by Andrea De Jager-Jackson, a women's coach and founder of Limitless Growth Partners. She's also a people first and purpose-driven executive. What a mouthful. Andrea,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm really excited
Yeah.
as well, because a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the introduction
Yes.
are questions that we're going to be asking throughout the show, and they're really important. So before we begin, I want to talk about what led you to establishing Limitless Growth Partners, and what do you do? What do you do, and why do you do it?
I've been reflecting a lot about that, over the course of the last year. I have navigated there's a number of words I can describe my career: purposeful, meaningful, and yet at the same time, incredibly challenging at times. And as I think about those environments, there's been environments where I've been able to show up and do my greatest work aligned to my values. And then there's been environments where that's not been the case. And I've needed to navigate through a journey that's tumultuous, challenging, and still try to do it in a way that's authentic to myself. I've worked in environments where I've worked with other women where we saw ourselves as competitors. And so, as I think about, what I do and why I get up in the morning, and that's really about working with people and teams to be the best versions of themselves. And so founding Limitless Growth Partners is really about empowering women and the companies they impact to lead and thrive, allowing them to build community, to be able to identify and break those boundaries, identify the patterns and break those boundaries to really lead in a way that's authentic to themselves and become their highest aspirations.
I love the fact that you started with struggling as well, because everybody thinks, oh, I have to be perfect and this has to
Yeah.
be right on, but there's no such thing as perfect
Nope.
because it's that moving scale.
Yes.
And we all struggle, regardless of how successful you are, what kind of a job you have. We all struggle, and we all struggle on a daily basis, regardless of what it is. Waking up,
Yeah.
getting out of bed sometimes
Yes.
is a struggle.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about thinking patterns, because
Yes.
that's key. What are some of the common thinking patterns you see holding women back in leadership?
Okay. There's a number of them, an exhaustive list, but some of the common ones that I see, and I think it's first important to recognize where they come from. So about 95% of what we do and what we say comes from our subconscious. Those cultural norms for decades that have been groomed into us that are deep down. We teach our sons and our boys to be brave and take risks and take charge. And we teach our daughters to be supportive, be caregivers, play it safe, be polite. And so that becomes deep down in our subconscious. And so those patterns show up in stories like, being ambitious is selfish. I need to put the needs of others ahead of my own. I have to be selfless to be successful. I need to be able to do it all myself. I can't ask for help. And so those are some of the thinking patterns that we don't even recognize. They creep in and they hold us back from taking action, and they hold us back from shifting.
So how do these patterns and beliefs show up in our behavior then?
So one of the patterns I also see is the need for us to be humble and to be modest. And so have you ever heard in an organization a woman get a compliment and she's like, no, that's nothing. It was the team. It was the team that accomplished it. So we don't necessarily take credit for the value, the accomplishments, our role in the success of the team. We don't want to take center stage. And so we want the backstage pass, and we're so used to putting others ahead of our own and showing off the successes of others. So we have a hard time taking center stage and advocating for ourselves because we don't want to be perceived as boastful or bragging.
So when we come back from commercial break, we're going to talk more about imposter syndrome and other things that hold us back.
Yeah.
So please don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic is breaking boundaries and empower women leaders. So, Andrea, I briefly touched upon imposter syndrome before we went to commercial break. Why do you think women are more prone to self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, especially when they're in high-level jobs?
Yeah, so think back to that subconscious we talked about, right? So we all have this preconceived notion of how we should be showing up or what we should be doing. And so when we attempt to show up in a way that isn't aligned or congruent with that image, it's uncomfortable. If we believe that we're going to show up in a way that that is different from others, what they think we should be showing up, that's uncomfortable. And we don't, right? We shy away from it. We don't speak up. We don't challenge ourselves for fear of being perceived in a way that isn't going to help advance us in business.
So, what challenges have you faced in your career? Because clearly you know a lot about this, so you've had your own experiences.
I have. And those have been some of the most challenging times, but growth oriented times for me. And so, I think back to a period of time where I was the only female executive on the leadership team and thinking through how am I going to navigate? What do I want to be known for? What reputation? What do I want to role model? How do I want to lead? And what impact do I want to have? And being able to show up in a way that's aligned to that. Having to find my voice to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do the meeting minutes because I'm the only female at the table on the team. No, I'm not going to plan the party because I'm the only female here. Being able to find the courage to challenge back when someone says to me, Andrea, you need to be more like dad right now and less like mom. And so those types of situations, and there's a ton that, I've experienced, but those are just a few examples of being able to navigate that, the fear of challenging that and saying no. There's something far more important on the other side of being able to role model and show up authentically as myself.
And I agree with you 100%. But then somebody will say, well, where do I get that confidence? Because you have to be confident in order to say, I'm not going to do that because I'm the only female here.
Yeah. And confidence plays a key role. And we also need to recognize that we're not always going to be fully there. I encourage my clients and the women I work with to act before they're fully comfortable. And it's in those moments that you build confidence. You grow, you learn. Are you going to get it right all the time? No, absolutely not. Those that have worked with me have heard for years, you're going to win or you're going to learn. And if you didn't knock it out of the park, you're going to learn something and do something differently. And it's in those consistent steps of taking forward momentum and action is where you build confidence. You feel different, you exude different energy, and as a result, you become that future you that you want to be.
I love the fact that you talked about learning because so many people are afraid to make a decision because they're afraid of failure.
Yes.
But I keep saying that you need to fail in order to build upon that foundation of your success. But you have to learn from the failure. And failure is okay. It's not a bad word.
No, we need to be able to know that it's going to happen, embrace it, give ourselves permission to be able to say, you know what, that didn't go as planned. What am I taking from it? What am I going to do differently? And give yourself permission to keep what you like, change what you don't. And it's constantly improving and evolving. We're human beings. We need to be able to do that. But you'll be stronger as a result, more confident and convicted in who you are and how you support and lead in the future.
So what strategies do you leverage to help women recognize their thought patterns and beliefs that impact their behavior?
Yeah, there's one in particular. As we navigate kind of a growth-oriented, ambitious goal setting and strategy plan for them, envisioning what it looks like for them in the future. We then spend some time understanding what are those fears? What are those thinking patterns that are holding you back from taking that action? And thinking about the subconscious, in order to be able to make sustainable, lasting change, you need to rewire your brain. And the science says you can. And so what you believe matters. And so being able to reframe once you've identified some of those thinking patterns to new thinking patterns and taking consistent steps and incorporating them daily into your life will drive different behavior from you and you'll see different results.
So when we come back, I want to talk about fear
Okay.
because there's too many people out there that are afraid to, as I mentioned earlier, make a decision or make a change in their life. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more building confidence and trying to get rid of fear. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic is breaking boundaries and empower women leaders. So Andrea, fear.
Yeah.
So many women are afraid of making a decision, whether it's work, whether it's friendship, whether it's a relationship. You know, you and I were talking during the commercial break, and I've had people say to me, I want what you have. Well, if you want what I have, you're going to have to make some decisions, and they're hard decisions to get to that. So how do we navigate fear?
Yeah. That's a great question. And it's unique for each of us. And one of the things that I talk to with women that I work with is understanding for them what it's costing them to stay where they are today. That could look a number of different things. It could be mental health. It could be financial. It could be purpose in their life. It could be, there's so many things that it could be costing them. And so when we work through what that looks like, we also recognize that what's on the other side of that fear, if they, navigate through it, is much more meaningful, much more rewarding, much more impactful and purposeful in life than staying where you are today. And that is usually enough in and of itself for them to be able to say, how? Okay, let me imagine what that looks like, and let me take steps to do it and find the courage to do it.
So how do you help women find the leverage in their voices, especially in environments where they feel that they are unheard? Because this question comes up so often, and I ask it often enough on different episodes. Women are afraid that they're not being heard, and they're afraid that they don't have a voice.
Yes. And so what I encourage and invite the women I work with to do is to start off in smaller forums where they know that those in attendance in the audience or whatever environment they're in have their back. They'll be supporters of them, advocates for them. They'll be able to share feedback, straight goods. Okay, Elizabeth, this is how you showed up, type of thing. And to be able to do it in a safe way that builds the courage and commitment and conviction to be able to do it in broader audiences, depending on what they're trying to navigate. The other thing that I've done at times is videoing. And so that's uncomfortable for individuals, right? Being video.
A lot of people.
And there is some resistance to that. But the women that have done it and the clients I've worked with that have done it have incredible aha moments. They didn't realize they were showing up this way. They didn't realize they sounded like that. And while it's uncomfortable to do, they have, greater conviction in moving forward with, okay, I'm going to do this now and I'm going to test this out, but doing it in a way that's still authentic to them because they want to be true to themselves, and though they should, they'll be able to give more value and give greater gifts when they're themselves, right?
It's funny too. I have a girlfriend whom I adore, and I'll say to her, okay, you're going to go network. Yes. You need to come back with 3 business cards or 5 business cards. And she looks at me and I said, I want to see them the next day. But it's good because she's actually going out of her comfort zone because everybody stays back. And it's like, oh, I don't feel like networking. I'm going to go home. Well, how's that going to help you?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that you shared that's important is an accountability partner. Yeah. And so she's much more likely to do it when she knows Elizabeth's going to come pick up the phone or want to see them the next time you catch up with her, right?
But I like that. I like the fact that you say that there's an accountability partner. And I think that's something that people should look for and create for themselves because it's easy for us to dismiss ourselves. I'm not feeling well today. I'm feeling tired today. I had a hard day at work. Whatever, my energy level is low. But if you have that accountability partner, they will help you get to that next level.
Absolutely. Well, they're going to be your biggest advocate, supporter. They'll catch you when you're down. They'll help you celebrate wins, right? In a safe way that allows you to keep moving forward.
So when you're working with women, I want to talk about external barriers and challenges because it makes it difficult for women to rise. I mean, we just had this discussion as well. What are the external barriers that we have to
Well,
look out for?
one of them in particular is lack of women's networks and forums. And right now that's changing. And so we're seeing more of them, which is wonderful. We need to keep doing that. But you don't necessarily see women spending time building community. You don't see them necessarily leveraging networks, they're so busy kind of taking care of their personal and their business. The other aspect is just in organizations, how they attract talent, how they hire talent, and how they promote talent. Think about some of the bias that comes into those opportunities. I have sat in meetings where we've had to kind of kibosh some of that bias.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
When we come back, we're going to talk about bias. Don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's topic is breaking boundaries and empower women leaders. I'm joined by Andrea De Jager-Jackson, a women's coach and founder of Limitless Growth Partners. Andrea, before we went to break, we were talking about bias.
Yes. Yeah. And so, being in organizations and watching the decisions around promotion and hiring, there's been times where I've sat in meetings where leaders have raised, will, her family commitments, get in the way of her being able to successfully do the
She
job.
has small children.
She has small children. Never have I ever heard that about a male within the business. And they are actively engaged in their families as well, but that doesn't even come across. And so it's finding ways to interrupt that and not measure success based on those aspects. It's really about the value and the contribution someone can make to the business.
So you talked about organizations. How
Yes.
can organizations create an inclusive culture that supports women in leadership without placing additional burdens on them?
There's a couple of things they can do. First and foremost, it's about integrating women, not isolating them, being able to look at the ecosystem of the organization and finding ways to incorporate. Flexibility is one of them as well. And so being able to find ways where women can incorporate and integrate work and life and contribute fully in all aspects of their life will be an incredible step forward for women in the advancement for their careers.
So, what are some questions that women can ask themselves to develop greater self-awareness around their leadership potential? Because women typically don't look at themselves as leaders.
No, and there's a few that, come to mind. And first and foremost, we struggle with this first one, answering it at times. It's what unique value do I bring to my team and organization? And so identifying that is important to identify the strengths. Two, what fears are holding me back from taking that next step? And if I was fully confident, what would I be doing next? Imagining what that would be looking like. And that'll help them identify the opportunities and where they can focus on.
So I want to just switch the question a little bit. How can male leaders and peers play a more active role in supporting women's leadership journeys?
Yeah, that's a really important. We will see women advance more when we have more men sponsoring women in organizations. And so we see them show up as mentors and coaches, but it's not natural for them to sponsor. And so for them being able to make sure that women's accomplishments are heard, their names are brought into meetings when there's openings considered, et cetera, is going to be important for the advancement of women.
So one question I have, I know a lot of women struggle with this. When you have someone that you're working with, it's a female and they're a bully. And they feel they can't speak up. They feel they can't help themselves. They feel that they're super, super intimidated on a regular basis. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, being able to understand how you want to be able to show up, and that's not the first time I've heard something like that. And so I invite the individuals that I work with in that to be able to understand what kind of relationship they want to be able to have with this individual and enter into dialogue with them about it. There's likely something insecure about that individual that they're interacting with that's having them show up that way. And so approaching it from a sign of empathy and building a relationship will hopefully lead to a productive relationship long term where those nuances go away over time.
So we have less than a minute left. as we wrap up our time together, because you and I could talk for hours on end, what message would you like to leave with today?
Yeah, there's one in particular that's been sticking with me for a while, and that is true growth lies in daring to see through the lens of possibilities. It's not about staying within the lines of what's known in our comfort zones. It's about imagining what's possible and then pursuing that with unwavering determination.
Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today. I think that we've enlightened quite a few people out there, and hopefully we've helped educate them and it will get them to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to be here, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea says that what you believe has the power to transform your reality. When you shift how you see the world, your energy aligns with new possibilities and the world responds. When you embrace new perspectives, you can step confidently into your next chapter while being true to yourself at every step of your journey. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.